Thank you again for those of you that were nice and prompt. I think let's get started. So I'm delighted to be introducing to you today Sopro's November webinar. I really can't believe we're nearly a month and a half away from the end of the year. I'm really not too sure where that's gone, but luckily we've got a speaker lined up who knows a thing or two about both email lead generation and converting sales. He's been with Sopro since its inception and has helped the company really grow to the 300 headstrong headcount that it is now. Today, we're going to be talking about how to unlock sales in December. It's the key to really making sure that January and Q1 flies for your business. As others take their foot off the gas, Steve will argue now is the time to gear up and find the outside lane. Our plan this morning is to give you useful and tangible advice on how to maximize the last 30 working days of the year to set up you for a bumper 2023. So expect to come away with some tips that you can put into practice. They're real life examples of how December prospecting creates and drives January sales. Now, there really is so much information crammed into this session that I'm sure you'll have lots and lots of questions. So as I mentioned earlier, if anything pops into your head, please just drop it into the chat and I'll put it to Steve at the end. So now on to our speaker today, this morning. He's seen more double dips than a Nando's side, more leads than pets at home, and he's sent out more chasers than a vodka shots bar. It's Sopro's very own Chief Sales Officer, Steve Harlow. Over to you, Steve.
Thanks, Shane. I swear these intros get worse every time, but I'll accept the kind words there. So yeah, this is a webinar all about the December or the perceived December dip and our kind of thoughts around what you should do from now onwards to the end of the year to ensure that actually you're not affected by Christmas, festive, the December time period. So before we go into the main detail about the webinar, some of you may know who Sopro are, some of you don't. But I wanted to give you a brief overview on our experience, our background, to really explain why we've got this information we can share with people and why that we do feel like we've got a bit of pedigree in terms of success in this area. So we started in 2015, and the business was born out of a desire to make cold written email prospecting actually work when a lot of the time it was a bolt-on for a digital marketing agency that would run some email activity for their clients. It would be a bit of a side offering rather than the main offering that a business had. As such, didn't get the attention it deserved. And so you end up with this mindset of emailing out to generate conversations being a huge volume piece where you've just got to go out to thousands of people to get a few responses back. And of course, if you're doing something like this badly, that's what's going to happen. So we went, right, let's look at it and go, if we just put all our efforts and focus on that one particular area, so generating interest in business via prospecting, which we use email as our medium, let's make it the best it can possibly be. And we're still pushing forward with that 7 years later. So we're a bootstrap business, never had any funding, still don't today. And we've gone from the two founders, who were Ryan and Rob. As Shane mentioned, I joined in fairly early doors. And now we've got about 317, I think, to be precise, full-time employees in the business, over 600 active clients around the globe. We don't just operate in the UK, we've got a strong presence in the US, Europe, and further afield. And for our clients, we are engaging over 5 million prospects a year for those people. It's something that you can't just do with existing tech or just off the bat. There's a huge amount that goes into being able to deliver that sort of volume at scale and have it work and not suffer any downtime. So we actually use entirely our own tech stack to deliver this. And to date, we've sent over 40 million emails on behalf of our clients. I will just note that if I am looking up in this direction because I'm sharing my slides on my large screen here, not the one directly in front of me. But yeah, so send over 40 million emails to date. And when you send that sort of volume of emails, you can actually start to read trends. So what we're able to do is dive into the facts, the figures, and extract information where we can see what works, what doesn't work. We can do accelerated learning, so we could think of an idea, test it rapidly with a large volume, get the results back and decide whether it gets put into practice. We generally try and do ideas ourselves internally before we roll them out to customers. Every now and then we get a customer come along with some good ideas as well, which we like to try. But because we have such a high volume of activity going on, we would like to share those insights and our learnings with people like yourselves. And in terms of generating new business for our clients, that's what our service does. It starts the conversations for our clients to continue to then look to make their customers. So as you can imagine, because we focus on starting those conversations and we do that for ourselves, we also put an awful lot of effort and focus into what to do next. That you've got somebody who's written, they're interested to hear a bit more about what you do. You want to take as many of those conversations through to the point that they actually become a customer. So not only can we talk about the top of the funnel, how to get people into that part of your pipeline, but taking them through in the most effective and efficient way to become a customer as well. So yeah, we've learned a lot. I want to share some of that with you. Just I mentioned that we are an email prospecting service. Email is one of those channels that most businesses will use one way or another. But if anyone is curious as to whether email is something they should be doing, if they're not, then we have a very useful infographic here, which suggests that yes, it is something you should be doing, or yes in pink. And in fact, we look at some stats. Generally, if you talk about ROI, money in versus money out, email consistently tends to deliver. But 71% of B2B buyers say email is the preferred channel from hearing from their suppliers. 73% of marketers rate email as their top digital channel for ROI, as I mentioned. And our clients, when we've run some surveys, say that prospecting is 3.8 times more effective than social media, 2.7 times more than PPC, and 1.9 more effective than SEO. I personally am a believer that you shouldn't think that there is one solution in terms of generating interest in leads. A multi-channel approach works, but you always focus on your most effective channel first, get everything you can out of it before you move on to other areas. So although prospecting is still very much one of the key sources of us generating leads and new business, we do layer in some other activity as well, such as things like paid advertising, social media, and it just makes sense to work on your SEO website as well. So before we go into why we believe December is a great month and what you should be doing, a bit of audience participation. So fingers at the ready. I'm not going to get everyone to try and speak, but if you could just type in the chat, either directly to Shaine or just in the general chat, if you have a thought in your mind, if you think December isn't a particularly good month for sales, I want to know why. So if anyone wants to write in there now, why do you think that December maybe isn't a great time for generating leads or generating sales or anything to do with your marketing and sales process?
So a couple of messages in, Steve. People on holiday, taking extended leave. Maybe people are just winding down, busy year. So, taking stock of the year that they've got and looking at the next year. What else have we got here? Lots going in. Yeah, winding down for Christmas. Because people are winding down for Christmas and they're less receptive, is what somebody's written there. Maybe they just have already switched off and maybe they're thinking that it's okay just not to think of the next quarter in the next year. Because another one that's just come in here is interesting because it's 3 months before the financial year or the end of the year, if that makes sense. So maybe people have spent a lot of their budget or aren't open to communicating with people because it's unfair to talk to somebody if they're not in the market, I guess, to start, marketing or taking on people's products. Less trading over the Christmas period. All pretty much the same, Steve. Same kind of message. Ultimately, customers usually shut down or slow down, and it's harder to get hold of people. And generally, the mindset of businesses is that let's look at let's look at January and wind down.
Yeah, a lot of valid points in there. I would say majority are what I'd call assumptions, in that they're not necessarily bad assumptions, but they are a bit of a mindset there and thinking, well, this is what I believe, so that's just how it is. In terms of the financial year, that's an interesting one. I mean, there's lots of companies that don't do April to April. People have different times when budgets get released. Absolutely. And what we've actually found, we've spoke to a number of companies, which I always find is quite strange, where they haven't spent enough of their allocated budget throughout the year, and suddenly they're getting towards the end of the year going, we need to spend this, because if you're a marketing team in a big company, often it's use it or lose it. So yeah, all valid points. Let's cover off or go through our thoughts on the matter. Now, first off, let's look at December as a month. Obviously, we can't deny the fact that there is normally more holiday taken throughout this month. Between Christmas and New Year, it's a popular time to kind of book in some time, take time to refresh, I guess, after what could have been a busy year. However, December as a whole is 1/12 of the year, and it's not an entire month of the year when people don't work. In fact, if you take the last week, that means you've still got 75% of the working days within that month are often worked by a lot of people. But even if you drop that down to 50%, you've still got 50% of the time to make contact with people, to have conversations, to bring conversations to a close. So I think that the month of December, you don't get to save money in terms of your overheads. So you still have staff to pay, you have general business costs. And I think it's fair to want from your staff a level of results that works for that. If they're working for 75% of the month, then should be providing 75% of the output. Might sound a bit harsh, but it can be a bit of a mindset that actually people are just chilling out for that time, but there's lots of reasons why you could engage with people. So first thing I'd encourage is look at December not as an entire month, but just take the last little part and separate that. And fair enough, yeah, if you're taking time off in December, that's you can't be expected to work the whole year round, and you can't be expected to be generating leads and pitching those leads when you're on holiday. So there is a period, but let's focus on the first part of it. So I want to look at the statistical side of things with regards to the performance of the time when you are working in December, because that's key. So we look at, for our marketing channels, our sales channels, everything, we have everything logged and stats, and we've got reports coming out of everywhere. Just, we look at every little facet and see what we can analyze and trends we can look at. So this is isolating the prospecting activity for our own sales team during the second half and the beginning of this year. So end of last year, moving into this year. And the first thing is lead rate. So lead rate is the measure of the amount of people that we contact and how many, as a percentage, come back showing some interest to speak to us. As in, they want to speak fairly quickly. And December, as you can see by that graph, is higher than October, it's higher than September, it's higher than the following February and March. It's beaten by November, and January, there generally is a bit of a spike in January when it comes to prospecting lead generation. There's a good reason for that. When you contact people, you don't just send one email, you often follow up with a few chaser emails. That's something we've learned. I wouldn't say the more the better. There's a sensible chain or length of chain. But either way, when we head into January, we'd often have a bit of a spike of emails going out for those chasers to follow up. That's when we tend to get more interest. And of course, it's January. People are going, oh, the year started, I need to get going and put some solutions in place if they haven't already. So the activity from our prospecting generates as good a leads as the rest of the year. It says to us, we shouldn't be stopping trying to engage with people. If we look, and actually I've taken a look this morning to just double compare the the stats around prospecting to our other sources of leads. And one of our biggest other source of leads, which is, it's number 2 in the fact that it costs a lot more than the prospecting, but we look at PPC, we generate consistent leads and deals from that. And again, we got a similar amount of leads coming through in December. But of course, what happens with those leads is also important, because if you do a load of activity and it generates interest but doesn't go anywhere, then maybe you are wasting your time. However, in terms of lead quality, the conversions are great. So we can see that the lead sale conversions in December were 38% higher than the 6-month average. And for us, it was the second highest within that period. And looking back at the PPC stats as well, I can see that the lead to close ratio for the December leads in PPC was higher than November and October as well. So what we can see here is we're not seeing a dip in interest. We generated slightly less leads in December through our prospecting as a volume, because also our staff have time off, and therefore we prospected not for the entire month. But in terms of the activity, it generated just as much interest, and that interest turns into just as much business. So when we go through the stats, we're not seeing any evidence here that suggests that any pausing or slowing down of activity should happen at all. Now, when we look at the outreach we do in December and what we get from it, we don't just want to focus on December. I'm sure you're all familiar with the term a pipeline, and you're probably familiar with people saying, oh, don't turn the tap off. And I think pipeline is the best analogy I can give that is, if you're running a hose pipe, you turn the tap off, the water doesn't stop coming out at the end. There's a load of water that continues to rush through, and then it stops. So at any point, if you stop your marketing activity, you don't see an immediate, you don't see the negative effects immediately for that. It happens further down the line. So actually, if you take any period of the year, let's call it summer or the Christmas period, December, and we'll touch later on in terms of, when we look back to things like COVID. If you stop doing the activities that bring in new business, you will further down the line start to suffer as a result of that. So when we look at our clients who continue to do outreach throughout the month of December, rather than stopping for a bit and then restarting in December, the stats are pretty clear as well. So businesses prospecting throughout December had a 19% higher lead rate in January, lead volume in January than their 6-month average. And the ones that paused during December won 36% fewer leads in January than those that continued. Because again, they stopped their flow, they disrupted that pipeline, and the effects were felt through. And that's something you don't really want to do. You don't want to be looking further down the line and being in a position where you can see that you're going to have less sales coming in February or March the following year. Want to give you some advice in terms of closing the deals that you get in December. First off, I wouldn't be overly concerned about trying to generate the interest and get them to become a customer all within December. When we look at the leads we generated in December last year, 25% of our new signings and new clients that happened in the month of January came from the December activity. But how can you go about creating a little bit of urgency in the month of December? So with our service, if somebody signs up, they don't just the next day start having leads. There is a process, and I'm sure for most of you as well, if you get a new customer, there is a time period of bringing them on board, doing a setup, whatever it is you offer, and then maybe there's a point where you launch or something that follows a similar timeline. So if somebody signs up, they normally don't expect to receive results immediately based on the service or product that they're buying. So as a result, anyone that signs up in January isn't going to see necessarily a lot of result in January. So what we're doing from now on in November and throughout December is we will explain to our clients that if they are looking to use our service and they're telling us, great, we want to get cracking in January, we delve into what does that really mean? So starting in January, does that mean you want to start the ball rolling with getting set up and getting onboarded and start receiving the service after that, or do you want to start receiving leads? And generally, the answer is, well, if we want to get going in January, as soon as we're back from the Christmas break, we want to see the results coming through. Great, not a problem. Well, if we want to onboard you, that takes about 3 weeks. Our staff also take a bit of extra time off over Christmas. So we like to get all setups and onboardings done. Really, I think coming at fine if you're going to the 18th, so 18th, 19th of December, we like to have everything onboarded. So therefore, we start to work back from that timeline. Suddenly we're in the start of December, and that's the point where it makes sense for people that want to get going in January to sign up and come on board ready to go forward in January. The alternative, if somebody signs up in January, we often get a rush in January. We do prepare for it, but it normally, most years, it ends up exceeding our expectations. So sometimes an onboarding that might take 2.5 to 3 weeks might take 3.5 to 4 weeks. So you sign up at the start of January, you're not then getting live until February. Something like our activity layers up and builds up. They're not seeing the benefit till mid-Feb, maybe March. So we explain that to all of our clients, and you want to have something similar in place for anyone that you're talking to right now until the end of the year, to find out what do they want, what are their expectations, what are they striving to achieve, and then put a timeline in place for them. And more often than not, that will involve them deciding to sign an agreement and move forward in 2022 as opposed to 2023. If we look back to last year, we had exactly the same amount of new contracts signed in December than we did in November. So it was even a shorter month. So actually, you'd say that was a better performance than we had the previous month. But yet again, the month of the year or the Christmas period just didn't have any effect whatsoever because of how we handled it. And another thing that we found out over the years is, so when you do emailing, you get out of office replies where it says, oh, thanks for your email, I'm on holiday for XYZ, or I'm actually on maternity or maternity leave. There's lots of auto responses that you get. If you are using any sort of automatic email cadence, let's say you've got a chain of emails going out on HubSpot or whatever tech you use, they don't know when you get a bounce back or out of office. So if someone says, oh, thanks for your email, I'm out of office for 2 weeks, and then use your cadences to email every week, you're going to email them again then next week saying, oh yeah, just following up on my last message. And people can suss that out. So we look at, with out of offices, what we do is we make a note of when they are returning, and then we will follow up with a slightly different chaser email, noting the fact that they are out of office. And we tested it. And the reason we test it, we want to see, well, does that actually create any benefit? And the answer is resoundingly yes. So if we are following up with somebody with an email, and we're following up an out of office email, so we're waiting until they return and we're pointing out that we got their out of office, what we see is an uplift in 55% on the responses for those out of office emails. And we see 40% uplift in the leads that we generate with those chaser emails, which can work out to be pretty significant. 100 replies comes 155, 25 leads becomes 35. So the point I'm making with this, or where I'm going with this, is that in a weird way, you actually benefit from doing outreach during a period where people are more likely to not be working and have their out of office set up, because you can then follow up your reply, the out of office reply, with a note that points out that you've got that, and you're going to see a better performance from those. Same in the summer period. So it's another reason why we encourage our clients to not take December in isolation and not do their prospecting activity, because in a strange way, it's better for you. So to summarize in the festive period, obviously sales team work all year round. If you're a director in a business, let's say you're the founder and you still get involved with sales, you kind of want to put yourself in that mindset of, well, I'm working for 12 months of the year. Do take some time off. I will encourage that. It's good to rest, but don't take the foot off the gas for 1/12 of that year. It's really important. And with the seasonal slumps, they do happen. We're not completely ignoring the fact that you might have slower sales within the month of December. But there's a lot of things to think about in terms of opportunities. So some of the comments in the chat were people are winding down for Christmas. Some people have mentally already switched off. I'll counter that with somebody who's winding down for Christmas, or somebody who is not quite as focused on work, is often in a better mood. Sometimes they got a bit more time on their hands. Cold email comes in, they might read something that they wouldn't normally read. So actually, during a time where people might be checking out for the year, you might be in a position to capitalize on that and get talking to somebody where throughout the rest of the year, they're just far too busy and haven't got the time of day for you. There's many industries that are quieter over Christmas as opposed to being busier other times of the year. Obviously, there are the other side of that coin as well. There's people that have brushed off their feet moving up to Christmas, like retail, hospitality, probably want to avoid those. But yeah, the assumption that people are less receptive because of Christmas, I would argue that they're more receptive. And you've also got people who are at panic stations. I mentioned about spending their budget. There'll be people that haven't yet got stuff in place for 2023 or for the next year, and they are looking for a solution. They may be searching online, you may contact them at the right time, but either way, you know, if they're working and their role is to, let's say they're marketers and their role is to generate leads the following year, if they haven't got everything particularly planned out and in place, your approach is going to be a welcome one because they're actually going to want to speak to you. So don't look at the seasonal slump or the time of year as a negative. Think about all the opportunities it presents for you. And the manifesting a smash sales season, I'm sure you've all heard that quote, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're absolutely right. And I mean, I've had that drilled into me for, 19 years of doing sales. You know, in my first sales job, it was literally written on the wall. And it really applies to the December month of the year. You know, if you go, it's all right, you know, people are taking their time off, people are less receptive, I'll just hold back a little bit. Yeah, you're not going to get any sales in. Whereas if you just look at it and go, oh, it's a normal working month, I'm going to be off for a week at the end of it. But apart from that, go full steam ahead. And everyone has that mindset. You will generate interest and you will generate more sales, and you'll come out the other end in a much stronger position in 2023 or any January as we're looking into the future. And I wanted to finish touching on a point that may be in the back of a lot of people's minds right now. I'm sure if you read the news, it's a lot of doom and gloom at the moment, but there's obviously increasing inflation. There's lots of talks of recession and what that might mean in terms of your business opportunities. But I would implore you to take the same mindset that we take with things like, well, December's just another month, with things like a potential impending recession. And I will just look back to the COVID initial months, 2020, March, April, all things kicking off. We decided as a business to take the stance of, we're just going to hit this head on. So didn't lay anyone off, didn't put anyone on furlough. We didn't cut any of our spending anywhere. We just looked at the clients that we would normally go after. We analysed what businesses they're in, who's the most effective, and made some sensible tweaks and changes and produced some content that will be useful for people in that period. And we doubled in size in 2022. Oh, sorry, in 2020. And we take that approach, and we will take that approach to any particular recession. Because whenever a period happens where there is negative economic growth, there is a tendency to tighten the purse strings and look at where can you cut some money to save yourself money. And more often than not, people do look at, well, we can cut here on marketing, we can cut here on sales. And unfortunately, it's a short-term win for long-term pain. And time and time again, because we've had recessions in the past and we've come out of them, this is cyclical, it happens. Every single time that happens, the businesses that double down come out of it in a stronger position. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about a business where they're thinking actually how are we going to keep the lights on here? You know, they're just really struggling with making money. That's a whole different scenario, and obviously I wish everyone the best. But for anyone that is thinking, well, I want to save a bit of money here and there when it comes to your advertising or marketing or anything that's going to generate you new business, we can see in 2008, the global financial crisis, brands with the ability to maintain or increase their spending, we could see that their share price increased by 317% over the following 10 years compared to the 60 or but just below the 60% average. In the 1981 recession, the companies that maintained or increased their advertising spend over the next 4 years, they saw sales high, 256% higher than those that decreased their spend. And then the one that always sticks in my mind is back to the the Great Recession, the one that's always revered back as the deepest one that we've had. In 1930, Kellogg's, they used that as a springboard to become the size brand that they are today. So they doubled their ad budget, and I think they introduced a new line, Rice Krispies came about or something. And yeah, they have a larger market share, and we find that time and time again, recession looms, those that hit it straight on, they spend their money and they keep plowing through, they come out the other end with a larger percentage of the market share and in a stronger position. So I know it's not necessarily pertaining to December, but it's the same mindset and the same logic that we apply to things like the month of December. And that is my final slide. So what we want to do is spend the remaining, well, we said 15 minutes, but we can stay for a bit longer, but let's say we've got at least 11. Any questions that have come in during that presentation and any questions you have now, you can send directly to Shaine or in the chat, and I will do my best to answer and field them as well as I can.
Firstly, Steve, thank you very much. That was excellent. Some really interesting stats there. Certainly for me, working here at Sopro, but the biggest takeaway really is always the out of office messages and how you can really make a benefit from using those to target people in the new year. It's fantastic. So thank you. So we do have some questions. If it's okay, we'll get started. Sai sent in actually off the back of that last page you had there talking about the recession. Where are those stats from? Where did we get those stats from?
We did get them from a source that I'll have to defer to collect for that one. But it was we'll put that afterwards. We can send it to Sai because it's somewhere where we've got a number of stats before. So you can probably ask Maxine or Colette as they're with you. But we'll put that one and we'll get some of the answer because there's lots of stats from this particular source.
Yeah, so it's from the State of Prospecting, actually, those were from 2020, and you can download that free from our website. So, yeah, please go on and download that. There's some excellent information in there. So thank you, Sai. Corey, Mitchell and Sam both asked the same question, actually, Steve. What is the percentage of lead type in December? They assume that maybe there's some more deferred interests slightly higher in December based around what you've been talking about. Obviously, there's a way to benefit from them, but they wondered, do you know the rough percentage at all? Yeah,
interestingly, there was a slight increase on deferred interest, not notable. So yeah, you do find that there are people that will say, great, let's speak in the new year, but actually that's normally about 2-3 weeks away. But certainly not a spike, just a slight increase there.
So a question here, we are primarily B2C, but also try to engage B2B where possible to drive some B2C sales. Our market is B2B and it's very niche. How would Sopro usually tackle a scenario like this when there isn't the option to generate thousands of prospects? So they're concerned really about the addressable market there, Steve.
So it's a B2B, B2B2C style approach.
Yes.
Well, I mean, one of the things that is integral to our sales process is establishing and analysing a business's requirement to make sure that something like Sopro would actually work for them. So we will build a market map to see of those businesses that you want to go after to then try and get consumers, what size is that pool of the market? Because ultimately, if that market isn't huge, then I personally would say that your direct colder outreach in the style that we do probably isn't the right route to go, because you might only have a few hundred people you can possibly contact. And when you're looking at that size of a market, I would probably say you want to go down an even more manual route, something more like account-based marketing. The first thing I'd want to do, I mean, you can have a look on our website on the adding value. We have a market mapper where you can put in the criteria of those businesses you want to go after and see the size of that market. But yeah, if you've only got a few hundred people that you can contact and only a handful of businesses that are within your remit to contact, we'll hold our hands up and say maybe Sopro isn't the right option for you. But actually what tends to happen when we look into these slightly more niche industries, it's bigger than what people realise. So I would say we're always open to having a conversation around that. But we can let you know if we know more about those businesses, whether the numbers are there or if they're not. And yeah, I would say that you can apply the same sort of approach that we do, but a bit more manually to be a bit, really specific with everyone you contact, so that yeah, you can get the best opportunity to grab their attention.
Great, thanks, Steve. There's quite a few more questions coming in, so we'll keep going. So a question here from Dan, actually. Do you find the stats results from the analysis on high numbers of emails mirror when you're comparing startups versus established businesses? So what are the difference in stats when you're targeting those kinds of industries?
So there's many things that affect the performance of somebody's activity, none so much than the audience you're going after and the particular offering you have. Give you a simple example. If you have a digital transformation platform or service that you target huge banks with, and that's your target market, you're not going to get loads of leads and sign loads of deals all the time. If you're doing 7-8 figure contracts, it's just not going to happen. So in terms of our clients, whether they're a smaller business or more established business, that doesn't make a difference. It is more about what they offer and the target market they go after that will have an effect on their the performance of their emailing. Because whether a lot of businesses that are established, established it's subjective in terms of what established really mean. But there's plenty of businesses that are pretty good size and well established, you'd imagine, that lots of people still haven't actually heard of. There's lots of businesses that don't necessarily advertise, or they're not in your particular sector or vertical, you're not that familiar with them. So the whole concept of the sort of service we deliver is putting your offering in front of the right people and the right businesses. And that works whether you're a startup or whether you're a large business. And our clients range from gigantic multi-billion pound organizations all the way from, we've worked with independent consultants who have an offering where they want to get a few clients a year and then they use our service to generate that. So your business won't make a difference. Who you want to target and what you offer will. And logic dictates if you are offering something that is not going to be a massive decision for a business, and obviously if it's pertinent as well, you're going to get a better response rate and probably close more business.
Thanks, Steve. Question here from Pam, actually. Pam is a Sopro client, so thank you, Pam. A question around December. What are the hints for December messages? So we're talking about continuing to market through email over the December period and all the benefits that we talked about, and there's so many of them. But actually, should you change your messaging? Will that help as well increase the results if they're slowing down a little bit?
We don't. Just because, when I talk about disrupting the pipeline, again, you've got this flow of activity, and actually there's not a long period of time that you would be contacting people that you would class as the Christmas period. So to make a changing template doesn't really make a lot of sense unless there's something about your offering that is specific to that time of year. So I would say if you were going to make a change and it's about the lead up to December, you're probably better off doing it before December kicks in and then switching back probably just before Christmas and carrying on like normal into the new year. But with those stats I showed in terms of the performance of December compared to other months, that was without changing our messaging at all, not pointing out the fact it's a particular time of the year and just carrying on like, well, it's business as normal. If you want leads, we'll help you out with that.
Great, thank you. And one we've had indirect actually is again around that kind of December drive. When in your experience is the best date to stop? There's got to be a date that we do stop, and then when do you restart in January? Could you restart too soon? First day back, 2nd of January, is that too soon? What in your experience or our experience have we seen as good dates to stop and start?
Well, the most important date to stop is when you stop. So if you're starting your Christmas holiday, make sure you're not prospecting from that point onwards. But we tend to suggest, let's look at how the calendar lines up for this year, because we tend to go up until the 3rd week. So I think what we're looking to do this year is put an automatic kind of stop around the 16th, but there are clients that would want to continue maybe up until, because the 23rd is a Friday this year, so you could easily do some activity Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And the way the dates fall this year, you're probably less likely to have people take the days building up to Christmas or necessarily the whole week off, because actually the week before Christmas is a full working week.
Yeah.
So it does depend, but it's normally somewhere between the 16th and the 20th is when we tend to cut things off. But we've got clients who just want to plow through. But again, for our internal team and our own prospecting, when somebody's taking time off, we stop for that period. So yeah, most of the working days in December you can prospect for. We don't really do anything during the Christmas to New Year break. Although I'd be interested to experiment to see what results that pulls through. In terms of starting again in January, yeah, there's no reason to particularly delay it. I mean, what are we looking at this year? So we'll kick back off on the 3rd. I would personally say the 4th onwards is probably better. But with all the prospecting, you tend to have a bit of a chain going on anyway. So if your first one on the back doesn't grab their attention, the next one in the chain is probably going to be at a more suitable time. But yeah, there's lots of different people out there who respond at different times. And again, if you get them out of office because they're still on Christmas, great, you're going to get to do the out of office reply slightly further down the line.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. I've got a few more questions, but I've had just one come in and say, will we share the recording? Yes, this is recorded and we definitely will share it. So it will be available on our website, and we'll also be sending it to all of you via your email that you registered with as part of this webinar. So thank you for that question. Another question that kind of follows on from the last one, Steve, actually, another direct one is regarding the out of office messages that we've been talking about. Should you follow those up on the first day that you know they're back, or how much time should you also give those to get back in the business before you use the benefit of knowing when they're back and using those out of office messages?
Yeah, give them at least a day.
Okay.
So day 2 to 3 is sensible. I mean, some people are out of office for just 2 days, so it's not like a big thing for them. I would say avoid doing it on the first day they're back. Then any time after that, they should be fairly quickly back into the flow of things. People tend to clear their emails out by 11 o'clock on the first day back, hopefully, depending on how messy the inbox is. So yeah, I'd do that.
Brilliant, excellent. Okay, one last question actually, and I think we'll start wrapping up there. So another direct one. First of all, they're saying thank you very much for actually mentioning and talking about recession, because it is on everybody's lips. It's important, so it's good that we haven't avoided that conversation. But you know, and the importance of marketing through that recession, and the benefit of so many big brands that we know over the years that have actually really benefited. You know, some people take their foot off the pedal, and you can take a larger share of your market, definitely. I guess a follow on by the looks of it is why, in your opinion, is email marketing the best route to take within recession? You talked about lots of different marketing tools to use. You didn't say that email was the only one. We talked about the fact that it is the top performing in a lot of our research. But yeah, in your opinion, yes, we agree. Got to market through a recession. but why should email marketing be at the very top of that choice of solutions?
Well, controversially, I wouldn't say that everyone should be using email marketing as the number one. However, if you're looking at your channels, you would generally pick your strongest as your absolute don't turn off. And we find that with the way we deliver our service anyway for our clients, most of the time we are their strongest channel. It is our own strongest channel. So it's not necessarily a case of, regardless of who you are, what you do, you should email, you should pick your strongest channels. It just happens to be that actually, in terms of spend and result, email is most of the time pretty consistently number one, or at least number two, in terms of generating that revenue for a business. And if you ever are going to, tighten the purse string slightly, anything that's generating you business, you don't want to turn off, and keep it going. So I wouldn't sit there and just blindly say, whatever you're doing, stop, you should email, because it's not appropriate for every single business out there. But if you're doing it and it works, don't stop it.
Great, thank you, excellent. Okay, well, there's a final few couple come in, but what we'll do is I'll message you direct and answer some of those questions. So thank you, Steve, for the excellent information and presentation. Thank you everybody for joining us today. As a reminder, this has been recorded. We will be sharing this with you. It'll be on our website for you to look at by the end of today, sopro.io. Also, on top of that, we will be sending it to all of you via the email domain that you registered with, so that you can share it with people that may not have been able to join the webinar. Hopefully, you'll join us for our next webinar early next year, to be confirmed. And have a great day. And thank you very much from all of us here at Sopro.
Thanks, Shaine. Thanks, everyone.